I would like to call to order the appointments and ordinance meeting for July 13th at 5:36 p.m. This is being recorded by Zoom conferencing. If anyone else is doing that, could you vocally tell me that now? Seeing none. Councillor Gwen is here. Councillor Bullock?
Here.
Councillor Forgy? Councillor Golub?
Here.
Councillor Lapiensky? We have a quorum. I will call this meeting officially to order. And Catherine, is that the pronunciation of your name?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay.
Good job.
I just didn't want to be calling you the wrong name for the,
yeah, good job.
the near future. So our agenda is very short this evening. We have really one order of business. I would like someone to make a motion to accept the minutes from June 8th.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from June 8th.
And can I get a second on that?
Question, I'm willing to second, but I was not present, so I can't attest to the veracity of them.
Yeah,
but
it's okay.
To me, so.
Yeah, it's okay. So the motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any abstentions? Any corrections? Seeing none, thank you. We have no public hearings. The only motions we have this evening are for mayoral appointments. Catherine, just for your knowledge, what we normally do is you'll receive these nominations ahead of time. Counselors, especially A and O, we get a chance to look at them. We read through them. We make the nominations. If anybody has a specific issue with a nominee or a reappointment, they bring it to my attention beforehand. And then I try to address it. Like if someone has a flaw with someone's personality or something that's really, and then it's not a shock to any of us when we try to vote them in, to have someone say, well, you know, they were in jail for 10 years and I don't really think they should be, you know what I mean? Whatever. And so it works that fine. But that's kind of how it is. Marianne, could you read those appointments for me? Is that possible?
Yep, let me just get there real quick.
It's, yeah.
Page.
They don't have the pages listed.
I'm going through the minutes.
Yeah, that's, it's not listed on the page minutes, but it's
Yep.
page 11.
Yep, so just, you want me to just read the whole order?
I do, please.
Okay. Order number FY 23002, the City Council moved that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council, pursuant to Charter Section 2-10, affirm the following appointments by the Mayor. Community Preservation Committee, David Chichester, term to expire June 30th, 2025. Planning Board designee. Planning Board and Construction Committee, Mike Pratt, term to expire June 30th, 2025. Planning Board, David Chichester, term to expire June 30th, 2023, moving from alternate to full member, finishing out Mark Maloney's term. Sustainable Greenfield Implementation Committee, Greta Schwachman, term to expire June 30th, 2024, short term to maintain staggered appointments. Majority vote required.
Can I get a second on that?
Second.
All right. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on any of these affirmants? I received nothing in writing, so ahead of time, so I have no problem. The other thing too, Catherine, just to bring you up to date quickly, is we don't approve or we don't reject, we affirm or not affirm. That's what the charter gives us to do. So it's affirmation. So we're basically looking to go through, it gives us the ability to not necessarily agree, but we're affirming what the mayor has appointed, just so you kind of know our role. Is there anything else on any of these? Anything, Marianne?
Nope, not from me. They look good.
All right. Seeing that, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, we will send a positive unanimous recommendation to the full council. In the meantime, if we hear from any counselors, we can address those at this time. The next piece was to review the ordinance submitted by Councilor Wheeler, which was the proposed ordinance to prohibit unmuffled compression release engine brakes. Well, let me just start with this discussion. Those are Jake brakes. Those are those loud brakes that you hear when people are on inclines or hills and they're driving large vehicles. I had a conversation as recent as today with the DPW, Marlo, Director Warner, and he is still in the same situation we were in before. So I don't see a lot of movement on this. Where we do see a need in some cases, because some people don't like the Jake brakes and people are using them when they don't need to use them. It's almost unenforceable in Greenfield how it was submitted. A couple of examples are WTE Recycling. You know, they're located over on Montague Road. So a lot of the vehicles that are there are over the weight limit, and in order to bring the recycling in and out, have to use their Jake brakes. So that puts them on some of the connecting roads, the mountain. It puts them, you know, on Deerfield Street. It puts them on the connecting roads to that area. We also have the Mohawk Trail, even though it doesn't seem like it. High Street is all an incline. And the problem is, how do we enforce this? You know, we don't have the power in the DPW or the staffing in the police department, and we don't have a mechanism. So what would happen is someone would use their Jake brake, and we'd have to have somebody stop them and then ask them their weight, but then we have no way to prove it. We don't have a facility that can weigh their vehicle to say, oh, your load is under 20,000 pounds, so you didn't need your Jake brake. You just were doing it to do it. So it puts us in kind of a conundrum in that, yes, you know, and I agreed with a lot of stuff Councilor Wheeler put forward that, you know, some people, you know, it's a constant noise. It can trigger PTSD. There was a lot of really good points to it, but it's almost impossible to enforce in our mechanism. We don't have an area. We can't say like you can't use it in these zones or you can't use it on these streets, because our corridors of travel for commercial really parallel through the entire town, from High Street to Federal Street, you know, so in the hills, like we were talking about the ones over by WTE Recycling, where we could say no Jake brakes within this zone, you know, there's a reason they have to use them. Now, in the same breath, Director Warner said, Dan, I saw guys driving down, I don't know if he said Federal or Burniston Road the other day, just hitting their Jake brakes, like new younger people with their CDLs, and they're hitting the Jake brake. And yeah, no need. But how do we enforce it? How do we, and I hate to put an ordinance in the book that is a feel-good ordinance in some ways, because we really don't have a way to enforce it. Or a criteria that is generic enough without signage that would be like, you know, a novel on the side of the road saying, you know, you cannot use your Jake brake unless you're under 10,000 pounds, and then it's enforceable by city ordinance. It just becomes that. So that was what the DPW director was saying today. And I recommended, what if we looked into signage that said, you know, use of Jake brakes are, limited to weight limits over 10,000 pounds, or, you know, Jake brakes should be used only for whatever, you know, get some, and then have DPW put them up in some of the problem areas, just to remind people that residential area, Jake brake, please use caution with your Jake brake or whatever. I don't know the answer, but any ideas from either one of you? Any thoughts on this? That's where we are right now.
Yeah, I did a little asking around, and it seems other municipalities use signage
Okay.
in problem areas, and I think I'm assuming this is because Councilor Wheeler lived down by Deerfield Street. I hear those Jake breaks up where I live too. So,
Yes.
I think if we wanted to work on identifying those areas, signage is probably the best way to go, and I think that's like the best enforcement we're gonna get. Is just hoping people read the signs.
I'm really happy that you said that, Marianne, because I was like, I don't know the answer to this. Signage appears to be the way. Why don't I look into, and if you can send me an email, Councilor Bullock, on any of those adjacent municipalities that might have the signs, maybe we can use some of that vocabulary to implement here or recommend it. Director Warner was in full agreement about requesting signs. No, didn't have a problem with it. And I think, I lived on the Mohawk Trail for 8 years. So, I heard them all night and all day, because if they didn't hit their Jake brakes, they ended up like, driving through the people at Friendly's. You know what I mean? So it was just not, it's an awful thing. I kind of got used to it, but that's a hill where almost all vehicles have to use them that have them for safety. If they overheat their brakes coming down any of those hills, coming through the Montague Hill or the other one, and they don't use their Jake brake, once it goes, they're done. They can't stop those vehicles. So let's look at signage. Any thoughts on that, Councilor Golub?
Yeah, that was one of my biggest questions, just that what is written here mentions Holyoke, Chicopee, Northampton, and Longmeadow, but I wasn't clear on what they actually had. I mean, they're saying banned here, but what is, I appreciate your asking about like what is enforceable. I don't want, the language here says they should be encouraged. Signs sound like they would encourage people. And so, yeah, I'd be grateful, Marianne, if you would look into that. I think, sorry, my thinking is not very clear, but I think you just said that you would look into that. I was also curious about why those specific roads, and if there are other roads that signage would be needed on. I live out in the corner of the town. Luckily, I'm not subject to them, but that was the question I had.
I think when Otis put this together, he found people that had complaints, people that were citizens that reached out when they started discussing it in council in the past and said, I live on Deerfield, I live on High, I live on, some of the ones that were mentioned. And I think at that time it was almost like, why do they need them? That's flat, or whatever. Why are they using Jake brakes in some of those, locations? But when it came down to it, it is really safety. But I think signage might be our way, as we're discovering. Yeah. So that would be my recommendation. I'll look into some of that. I'll talk with director and so would you just like to say that this committee will look into signage, and we'll bring it forward when we get a little more information on what might be appropriate?
Yeah, and I think there's something to say of like, when I talked to my friend who is a municipal worker in South Yarmouth, so like on the Cape, so there's like main thorough of lots of main road through there, but then there's all these residential side roads that often trucks are going down to try to get around the Cape traffic there, and using their Jake brake when they have to go from like 20 to 5 miles an hour. And so what she said is they put up signs without an ordinance that just said residential area, do not use engine brake. or
Oh,
to
that's,
use
yeah.
Jake break, and it wasn't. They didn't end up doing an ordinance there, but there's other signages that I was looking at where I think that's the idea here is that, like, you know, Deerfield Street is still highly residential and flat, right? So really the only reason someone would need a Jake break is if they took that corner into from 5 and 10 and were going too fast
And
into
had a load going to the
right,
WT recycling. Yeah,
right.
agreed. And we have places too, you know, when we start going up towards the fairgrounds, that's why it's kind of hard to enforce because we're kind of encircled by inclines. And then if you make an ordinance, you know, it's so specific, it gets cluttered. But I think that's great, Mary, and I like the idea of something as simple as residential area. You know, that's good. So let's work towards that and see what we can come up with. Anything else on discussion on that? Anything under new business?
I had a couple of questions, just very quick follow-up, and I think they would just take, I think they won't take all the time.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I don't know if this goes under new business or not, so let me know. But there were two things in last month's minutes. That there was a note saying that the two of you were in the process of establishing a code of ethics, and that you were going to inquire with the Public Safety Commission. And I'm just curious about when is a good time for me to follow up, if there is any follow up to be done about those two things.
Sure. What I'll do to you is I'll have you forwarded all the stuff that is already on the books.
Okay.
There's already a code of ethics. There's already a code of conduct, but none of them are really followed. The mayor has her version for the executive side, and we have a version for legislative. And we were looking to tweak it because we started to have some issues with, you know, counselors' conduct outside of our own meetings and such. So we started just to look at it. Then we kind of got a little sidetracked because all that was going on. First, it was budgets, and then we had the police department kind of come to the top of things. So to be honest, I haven't even reached out to Councilor Bullock, and we said we do it. But let me get you all those things forwarded so you can see what's on the books, and then we can go forward. And if you're wanting to work on that, that would be great.
Yeah. There's no urgency to that question. I was just curious. So that's really helpful if you could forward those to me.
Yeah, no, they're all there. They're all in writing. They're all, the Mayor Forgy had written one years ago. We have a code of ethics that I think next year new counselors are going to get a little bit of more of a training day than we've been getting, where they would, we used to sign it. When I was a counselor in 2000, early 2000s, we signed the code. It was like an agreement that you'd act ethical, and we've stepped away from that.
That sounds like it could be a helpful thing.
Yeah, I think it's awareness. I think this committee all said half of us don't know the things that are on the books because they don't present them to us. They don't give them to us. So how can we put someone say, oh, they're not following ethics, when, some is common sense, but other things might not be known.
Right. Okay, great. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And if the two of you are in the process of that, and if there's a way to inform me about that,
I'd like to involve you, definitely. Our process was, we both worked a little, I can't say how much Councilor Bullock worked on it, but we were working on it independently, and then it just kind of hit a stagnant.
Totally. Of course. Yeah. And if that's where it is, that's where it is. Budget got a little heightened. A little bit.
I do have one thing under new business too that I wanted to bring up, which you might have seen. I presented at committee chairs this idea of a task force to work alongside the audit team if that amendment passes and there's funding for the audit. So that is in process. I'm still collecting feedback from community members and from counselors. So I'd love to talk with both of you if you have time at some point. Catherine, when you're feeling better, if you have time before the council meeting, and Dan, whenever you're free.
Sure.
Just for 20 or 30 minutes, and sort of update you on the process that's gone through, and there's been some shifts and adjustments as I've talked to people over the last few weeks from what I sent out to committee chairs, and potential what I'm thinking for the council meeting coming up, what I might present there. I'm going to try to go to Ways and Means and bring this up under Ways and Means as well, but I just wanted to make sure you both didn't feel in the dark about it.
No, I'd love to hear about it, and however we can put that together, face to face at my office or whatever works for you. I'd love to talk to you.
Great. And you're thinking that that's going to be on Wednesday's agenda next week?
I have not submitted it for the agenda. My plan is to I'm either probably going to try to make an amendment to the requested funds from for the audit, the 170 for the audit, depending on what comes up in discussion around that. But I've done a pretty deep dive in other audits over the last few weeks, and the ones that the mayor sent out, and some other cities that have done audits in much bigger cities in Austin, Texas, and Oakland, California, and Burlington, Vermont. And it's, this request is significantly more. I don't know if her request was significantly more because she knew it would be cut, or not, but I'm looking for input on, do I make an amendment to this based on discussion, or do I hold off and get a fiscal order through Ways and Means and try to fund the task force that way? But either way, I'm going to bring it up in new discussion if it doesn't come up with the audit discussion.
Okay. No, I'd love to hear it. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you for the work you're doing on that.
Did you have anything else, Catherine, at this time?
I had one other tiny thing. Just was wondering what happened with public comment, if it was moved to the beginning of the meeting, or if it's staying where it was going to be, or if that was, I couldn't tell.
At our regular meetings?
Yeah, there was that in the...
Yeah, no change.
No change, okay.
No.
Good.
It was talked about, but all we did was we did some, in the new rules of procedure we'll be voting in at the meeting, the only changes were like limiting some of the municipality speaking time limits, a few things like that, which will facilitate that quicker.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Anything else that I can help at this point? Feel free to call me anytime, by the way. You and I haven't really got to chat yet. I was away when you joined us, so welcome.
Yeah.
It is 5:58. Marianne, motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. The meeting will be adjourned at 5:59. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Good night.
Thank you. Thank you both.
All right.
Dan.
5:59. I did it.
Dan, I just want to say, you could go, Marianne. I just want to follow up with that, Dan. I've been out of the country. I got COVID I was in Ireland for a week and a half and got COVID on the last day. So I would love to get together. And this next month is, just looking at this month and was like, whoa, it's very packed. So it'll likely be September, but yeah. I would love to, and it may just be that we're sitting next to each other in council and get to know each other.
Oh, we're going to be
sitting
next to each other. And,
so.
And I'll tell you this, lean on me for anything, ask me questions. I tell all the counselors when they come on, if you call me and ask me a question because you're not sure how things go or a procedure, I'm not going to run to anybody and go, oh, do you know she called because she didn't know, the difference between a blah. That's not my style. You can ask anyone on council. I'm pretty direct. I try to be the kind of the old regime, bring back some of the history of council, because I never thought I'd be the old guy on council, you know what I mean? And I served for 11 years the first time. Wow. And then I left for 10 years and then I came back. And so I was the first president of the council when we went to a mayoral form of government. Huh. So I've been around, and like I said, I left during the Martin mayoral. I was there for 4G, her term, and the original council when we were still there was 27 councilors when I got elected the first time.
Wow.
Yes.
When was that? When did it?
2001.
Okay.
There was 3 for every precinct.
Wow.
And then and so we had 27 councilors. So it was, and then we had a town manager, and I lived through all of that. And then when we switched to the mayoral form, I was in the first city council with the mayor, and I was the first council president, and Forgy was the first first mayor. So I was always chair of economic development. That's what I did for like 3 terms. And then I left and I was the president, and then I went on to other things. Then I left. I just left. I had enough. And I came back and
then you hadn't had enough.
Oh, I have
even
now.
More.
This is the most difficult time I've ever spent in this council. This climate is really tough. And
can I ask why?
Criticism in every angle. There's no more gray. I believe that the best policies are compromises. You and I could disagree on 100 things,
right?
Which is fine,
right?
But we might agree on 50 things. So even though that means the majority of the time we disagree, if I look at it from your angle just for a moment, and you look at it from my angle for a moment, and you go, I think that's right. I think that would help. And that's how I've always done it. They used to call me the wild card because, they could pick where everybody was going to vote except Dan. Because I'd come in and go, and there was times that I changed my vote based on people talking. I'd come in, and that's how it's supposed to be. That's what it's all about. I had something in my head about, Jake breaks, and then I was like, oh, we don't need that. We don't need that. And then you come in and did some homework. I'm like, wow, I didn't realize that. Maybe signage is the answer. And I really thought that's how council used to be. I spend more time being nervous after all this time about, am I saying the right thing? Did I say the wrong word where someone's going to say I was being disrespectful, or I was being, somehow discriminatory or and that's not even the way I think. You know what I mean? So there's so many new ways, and social media, you just can't win. You just, the whole thing with cutting the police budget, it was a difficult subject. And I ended up compromising and going with the majority of the council, and I was chairing those nights. And, and I compromised and did what we had to do. But, I got the same wrath as the people that asked for $1 million too. And I was like, I fought against $1 million too. I thought it was too much, but it didn't matter. I had people stopping at my house, at my office, calling me on the phone. And it's okay because I asked for this job. But it just, it used to be fun. I really enjoyed it. I felt like I was making, a difference. And I've always been that person. You know what I mean? I have no agenda. My only agenda, and I mean this honestly, is my only agenda is to do the best thing for the residents of Greenfield. I come in with that mind. I'm not to the left. I'm not to the right. I lean more conservatively fiscally. And that's okay. But it's a tough atmosphere. It was funny. Councilor Elmer was talking about how he thinks our terms were too long and they should be 2 years. And I was telling him, that doesn't work because you could have, if it was 2 years, you could actually lose your whole council and start all over, and then there'd be nobody to chair things or whatever, because you'd have no one that has the institutional knowledge. And then he said something a couple of meetings ago. I said, our terms are definitely too long. 4 years seems like an eternity. So I think we're proving right now that Sheila and I get along really well. We work. I think we collaborate well. There's a lot of mutual respect, and I think that blew people's minds, and I'm glad.
Yeah,
you
me
know,
too.
the two of us came together, and I have not had a disagreement with Sheila. Maybe I haven't liked everything she said, or she doesn't like everything I've said, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I always say I've been married for 35 years and I disagree with my wife on a daily basis. Doesn't mean,
Yeah.
So I think we're in some ways we have a few counselors at the moment, maybe less than a few, that just want to stir the pot, and that's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard, but if I can be of help anytime, call me about anything, call me at the radio station, send me an email. I will give you my best opinion. That's all I can offer.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to say that I haven't attended that many council meetings of this current council. So I haven't been watching intimately, but I was at the budget meetings, and that might have been an issue that, I was happy how it turned out. And you and I might have had different ideological perspectives, but one of the things that